So this is another lecture in GS3 economy series. See, the purpose of this lecture is not only to give you foundation in the macro part of GS economics, but also the aspirant opting for economics optional, right? They will find this, these lectures, well suited for their foundation. So what we will try today. Okay, so what we have done so far in the last classes, we understood what is mercantilism, right? Mercantilism, mainly the two features of mercantilism school, what? Billionsism and no state intervention, right? Then we talked about the classical and neoclassical school, and then we, superficially discussed about Keynes. Then in day 4 yesterday, we discussed about MPN, right? What is things like MPN, marginal productivity of labor. We talked about marginal cost, and what else we discussed? We discussed aggregate demand curve. And if you remember well, right, what was the main feature? See, if you recall that equation, we said MC is equal to W upon MPN. And what is MPN? MPN, as you understood, marginal productivity of labor, that is delta Y upon delta N. What it says? One additional output for if you add one more labor, what will the add in the one output, right? How much output would you added? That is your NPN. And what we said, what the classical school assumed, your marginal cost. Actually, this should be like this. Your marginal cost is equal to your W upon MPN. And this, what is W upon MPN? See, W is your wages, and MPN is marginal productivity of labor. And this indirectly gives you marginal cost of labor, right? Marginal cost of labor. Do you understand how this is marginal cost of labor? See, this is wages, right? This is the wages you are giving, and MPN is your, if you add one more labor, how much will be the change in the output? So this was the fundamental concept, that marginal cost is equal to marginal cost of labor in classical school. Okay, so and you also know that Keynes' principle were mainly Keynes. We said that the book he wrote, General Theory of Money Interest, it was mainly against classical schools. And who were the main proponents of the classical school? Mainly David Ricardo, right? Adam Smith, David Ricardo, then Professor Pigoy. Okay, so before in today's class, what we will do? We will discuss about money in classical school. Okay, these are the topics I want to touch. Just give me 1 second. There should be some method to. Okay, money in the classical school. Then we will talk about something circular flow of income and output. This is important, right? Even the class 12th macro NCRTs, you must have seen this. How they talk about circular flow of income and output, and then we will talk about marginal MPC, marginal propensity to consume, marginal propensity to save, and expenditure multiplier. These topics we want to touch. Okay, if you recall, in the mercantile school side, the money plays a role, right? But the classical school side, that money, what were the two tenets of the classical school? Classical school said that it is based on the real factor, right? Real factor is production of goods, services, like building factories. And second thing, no state intervention. Intervention of the state was kind of prohibited in classical school. So now comes at this point. What is the role of money and monetary policy in classical school? Yesterday, you remember in the previous lecture, we saw this equation. Quantity theory of money. MV is equal to PY, where we assume that velocity of the money and the output is constant. So your money flow is directly proportional to price. Okay, this was the fundamental, idea which we derive from the classical school. Now, so what happens? So the role of money is, you can say, see what the classical school said, that the money has no role other than the role of transaction, right? Transition role. But mercantilism school, they emphasize the role of money. They said that money can stimulate the demand, that it can stimulate consumption, right? But the classical school said money is mainly for the transaction purposes. What I will do, I will read a paragraph from one of the papers, and through this you will understand the role of monetary policy and money in classical school. Just please listen carefully. What it says: in the classical system, the quantity of money determines the price level, as we have seen already, right? This equation is called quantity theory of money, and we saw that the money supply is directly proportional to price. Whenever the money supply is increasing, so what is happening? See, whenever the money supply increases, right? See, not only price, it has also a relation with interest rate. Whenever the money supply increases, interest rate decreases, and this leads to the increase in investment. So when we will talk about fiscal policy, that time this thought will be important. But for the time being, money supply and your price level are directly proportional. Okay. So what it says, in the classical system, the quantity of money determines the price level and the level of nominal income. Okay. So money supply decides your price level and the nominal income. Okay. In this sense, monetary policy was quite important to classical economists. Okay, so if you take this thing that okay, money supply is influencing your price level, to that extent only, your monetary policy is important for classical schools. Otherwise, monetary policy is not see what the classical school says, that it is based on the real factor. Okay, so they do not give much emphasis on much value to monetary policy other than this thought. What is that money supply influences price and nominal income, right? Okay, to continue the same statement, in another sense, money was not important. The quantity of money did not affect the equilibrium value of the real variables in the system. And what are the real variables? Like output, employment, etc. Right? They were not influenced by the monetary policy. They were influenced by the real policy. See, if you will say what is real, so okay, in today's sense we can more or less call fiscal policy, right? So monetary policy was just limited to influencing the price and nominal income according to classical school, but not influencing the real factor. Important thought. See, whenever you think about a classical school, you have to keep these two thoughts in mind, right? Okay, in your notes, suppose somewhere you are writing in UPSC, or let's say you have economics optional, or even in main somewhere you can write, try to use this phrase, productivity and thrift. Okay, just please note it in your, you can, in your notes you can add this, productivity and thrift determined real factor as per the classical school. Okay. So this is one thing. Another thing, you can also please add one more line in your notes. See, yesterday before yesterday we studied that output and employment is determined by supply side factors according to classical school. Okay, so this was the one important tenet of the classical school. Now please write the second tenet. What is the second tenet? You will say, the second central features of the classical system is the dichotomy. The second important feature of the classical school is the dichotomy between the factors determining real and nominal variables. Okay, so the real and nominal variables are determined by different factors as per the classical school. So what are the two important tenets? One tenet you will remember, that output and employment are determined by the supply side factor, and second thing, there is a dichotomy between the factors determining real and nominal variables. Please note it down in your notes. And I think more or less we can close your classical school. See, for UPSC, see, in prelims and mains you will not directly get question like what is quantity theory of money and what is classical school, but this foundation is important. If you have this kind of foundation, I'm pretty sure out of 15 odd question which you get in prelims from economics, hardly see, nowadays the questions are conceptual in nature. They are no more what this scheme or that scheme. So I'm pretty sure if you have this kind of foundation, and with this foundation, not only GS3 economics, but also economics optional, right? Economics optional you can also tackle, right? So now what we will do, that's fine, okay. Now what, okay, now you know the Keynes, right? After classical school, Keynes came into the picture. So his famous book is General Theory of Employment, Interest and Money. Circular Flow of Income, MPC. So what I will do, please see, just writing a name of a book will not help much, but this is my suggestion that whenever you get time, if not today, maybe some after CSC, try to read few chapters from this Keynes book. Professor Keynes book is general. See, the word general has a meaning here, right? General Theory of Interest, Employment, Interest and Money. Employment, interest and money. See, okay, let me say a few things about about this book. See, it is hardly 400 odd pages book, and not only this book, he also wrote another wonderful book, Treatise on Probability. Okay. And this again is a very rigorous book, Treatise on Probability. See, you have to understand this. Mainly, economists cannot move forward in their science without statistics and maths. And statistics also include probability theory. So you can see, you can understand why it was important for Keynes to, understand read and study the works of Leibniz, like Pascal, right? So it was important for him to understand probability theory. And what he did in the General Theory of Employment, he more or less not criticized. He tried to give a new theory, okay, which was the tenets of this theory was against the principle enshrined in classical school. Okay, so let me read one or two paragraph from his book, and that will help you understand what he was trying to do in this book. And then we will move in, we will discuss about marginal see, it is very simple to tell you, okay, this is the formula of marginal probability of consumption, marginal probability of saving. But when you get the background, right, okay, why it was important, why Keynes, gave this formula, why the expenditure multiplier was required. So that story is inbuilt in your mind. So I assume now you understand Mercatism, classical, then Keynes mainly through these two books. Okay. And okay, see, treatise of probability I cannot discuss at present now, but I would suggest try to read a few chapters from this book. Then you will understand how the works of let's say G.E. Moore, right? G.E. Moore, Bertrand Russell. Okay, he was mainly a set theorist. And see, you have to understand how you have to understand the influence of these two professors on Keynes, and it will take many years to understand. But try to read a few chapters from here. Now, what we will do? Okay, I will read a few. Let me read a few paragraphs from General Theory of Employment, Interest and Money. What it says, chapter 1, he writes, I shall argue that the postulates of the classical theory are applicable to a special case only and not to the general case. And this is the reason, he used the word general here, right, with a prefix. What it says, that postulates of the classical theory are applicable to a special case only and not to the general case, the situation which it assumes being a limiting point of the possible position of equilibrium. Okay, so this is, and before this he write, then he said, I have written a book called A General Theory of Employment, Interest and Money, and what he said, the object of such a title is to contrast the character of my argument and conclusion with those of classical theory. And how it defines classical theory? Mainly the work of Ricardo J.S. Mill, right? P.C. Pegoy, Alfred Pegoy, and Alfred Marcel, Professor Alfred Marcel and Professor Pegoy. Okay, so this is one thing. And just now we talked about two important points of classical school, mainly that output and employment are supply demanded, and the real and nominal thing which we studied. Now let me read two from the original book what Professor Keynes write about postulates of the classical economics. He writes, the classical theory of employment, supposedly simple and obvious, has been based on two fundamental postulates. What? Two fundamental postulates. Number one, the wage is equal to the marginal product of labor. Wage is equal to marginal product of labor, right? So this is one thing. Then he writes, that is to say, the wage of an employed person is equal to the value which would be lost if employment were to be reduced by 1 unit. Okay, MPN, MPN is equal to delta Y upon delta N. So what he says, what your wage would be, wage of an employee would be equal to the value which would be lost if employment were to be reduced by 1 unit. Okay, so this is the first one important postulate of a classical school. Then comes to second postulate. Second postulate, he writes, the utility of the wage when a given volume of labor is employed is equal to the marginal utility of that amount of employment. Let me write this, so that you can note it down. So, two postulates of classical schools. Number one, wage is equal to marginal productivity of labor. Okay, this is one thing. Second, the utility of the wage. Utility of wage when a given volume of labor, this is labor, right? This is, excuse me my spellings, but writing. So, utility of the wage when a given volume of labor is employed is equal to the marginal disutility of that labor. Okay, this is labor, LABOER. So please note it down. See, discussing like this takes some time, but the foundation which you will get, right, in economics, I'm sure that will be a pretty good foundation. And see, one more thing you have to understand, when you prepare for CSC, if you do well in GS3 paper, if for prelims, economics question are very, very important. Right? Once you have nailed down 12 to 15 questions which you get in prelims, see, it's very difficult nowadays. History questions are very difficult in prelims, right? Not predictable. It's not difficult, they're out of this world. But economics is manageable, right? Polity is manageable. So economics, polity, your agriculture part, environment, through that you can nail down the prelims. And see, what important thing, if you're good in economics, right, even if you join services, the people who are good in economics, they get, better appointments. Can you say, let's say you understand Encasing committee report, right? Encasing. Why he got this, why Professor Encasing got this opportunity? Because of his foundation in economics. Similarly, many, administrators became RBI governor. Why? Because they knew all these things. So it is my suggestion, try to understand economy with some care and attention, because not only it will help in qualify UPSC, but even when you join the services. Okay. So this is what we have talked about classical school so far. Now what we will do, now we will move into the Keynes, and see, okay, what, just a minute, how to, just go, I can read the right. What you will do, okay, before we start Keynes, please you write few lines. Keynesian system, okay. Please write it down. What it says, see what the Keynes was doing. Keynes was, as we just now mentioned, he was building his theory against classical school, right? So let me read one 3-4 lines by Professor Alfred Marshall, what he has to say about the employment thing, okay. And Professor Alfred Marshall was from the classical school. What he writes: classical economists recognize the human cost of unemployment, as stated, for example, by Alfred Marshall, Professor Alfred Marshall, who was a classical economist. What he writes, listen carefully. See, these paragraphs are very, very important. If you understand such paragraphs, see, these are like stories. See, mathematics is fine, theory is fine, but when you remember these stories, that structure of economics will remain in your mind. What he says: forced interruption of labor is a grievous evil. It is an evil, labor has to work. Nobody should be unemployed. Those whose livelihood is secure gain physical and mental health from happy and well spent holidays. That's well taken. But want of work with long continued anxiety consumes a man's best strength without any return. That's correct. When the people remain unemployed for a long time, their strength. Again, I think that is the. They cannot develop any capital, right? Human capital is the most important capital. So that's what he writes. His wife becomes thin and his children get, as it were, a nasty notch in their life, which is perhaps never outgrown. So what Professor Alfred Marshall is trying to say, how important is employment. Okay, because what we studied in the previous class, classical school was mainly discussing about how output and employment are influenced by demand factors. Okay, sorry, supply factors. Now let me read one line more from. Okay, what the Keynes says. Keynes says the strength of the self-adjusting school. Self-adjusting school means classical school is talking about. The strength of the self-adjusting school depends on its having behind it almost the whole body of organized economic thinking and doctrine of the last 100 years. Okay, see what you remember that Keynes principle became important during the Depression, right? He asked government to stimulate demand through investment, and classical school were tenets of classical school were against that. In fact, Hoover and Roosevelt, we studied in the Hoover and Roosevelt era, they increased the tax. Why? To reduce the budget deficit, and which was not appreciated by the economist. So what he says, what Professor Keynes is trying to say, see, classical school has been developed over the last 100 years by many economists. So it is not easy to refute their principles, their tenets. Let's say David Ricardo and as we studied, Professor Alfred Marshall JS Mill. So they 100 years of work. So to refute their principles, to negate their views is not easy. So that is what he's trying to say. Okay. Now see, now we will study few things like marginal propensity of consumption, marginal propensity of saving. But before that, you must recall the fundamental equation we studied in the 1 or 2 lectures before. What it was? Your demand income is equal to consumption plus G plus NX. This is consumption, investment, government spending. If it is a closed economy, there will be no NX. Otherwise, it will be then it will be CIJ. So this is the equation you have to know. Okay. So please write it down. Please, the central notion in the Keynesian model is that equilibrium level of output requires that output be equal to aggregate demand. So this is the main thing. Output be equal to demand. This is the important principle of Keynesian school. Okay, and you know this equation, right? This equation is equal to Ci plus G plus Nx. Okay, so okay, and okay, see why you can calculate through 2 methods. We saw that, one is CST. This is income method, and another was Ci plus G. Okay, so now using this equation, we will try to calculate your MPC. MPC is the marginal propensity of consume. Okay, so before that, I think what you can do. See, there is one more concept called circular flow of economy. It is also mentioned in your NCERT. So what it says, let's say there are households, there are industries. Industries produce and household consumes. So there is a flow of money from industries to markets to household to again industries. So there is a diagram which you can put in your economics notes, and somewhere diagrams like this you can also use in your GS3 mains paper, but provided it is required. Okay, so I will just draw a diagram and please note it down. It is called circular flow of income and output. Okay, see, in different book you will get different types of diagram, but the concept remains the same. What? That there are 3 entities: household, market, and industries, and the money is flowing from one to another. So don't worry about if you find a different diagram in another book, but the idea remains the same. What that I say like this. This is your households. Let's say this is your households. Okay. And this is your business sector. Let me just business sector. Okay, financial market. Financial market, government sector. Okay, so what is happening? From business sector to here, this is your Y and this is your national income. National income you understand, right? National income we already discussed. What is national income? GNP, yes. GNP minus depreciation minus statistical discrepancy. Okay, if you just revise, just go 2-3 lectures back and you will remember what this definition is. So from business to household and from household to consumption. This is one thing. C is consumption. Okay. So this makes sense, right? From businesses, it is going as a salary, right, to household, and household are consuming the product with the businesses are producing. And from household, some parts go to the saving, because see, all income does not goes into consumption. This is the equation now. Y is equal to C plus I plus G plus NX, or C plus S plus T. So here some part is going into consumption and some part is going into saving. And saving, you invest into financial market, and financial market through, maybe, IPOs, bonds, they will invest into the business sector. This is called investment. Okay, investment. And from here, it is the government sector. See, some part of it, government will take as a what? Taxes. Right? Taxes, and that taxes again is invested. Right? It is called government spending. Okay, so government spending. This diagram, I have not drawn it beautifully, but see, when you draw a diagram in UPSC, it is not, what is more important is the logical content of the diagram, right? The naming of the diagram, utility of the diagram. Do not draw a diagram just for the sake of diagram. Let's say somewhere you feel like, okay, the concept is, some, in main, there is a question like on circular flow of income or something like that, then you can mention about this diagram. Okay, and see, you have to have that kind of expertise. You should be able to draw this diagram, let's say, in 30 seconds. If you are taking, let's say, 5 minutes to draw a diagram, where is the time, right? So this is the way, this is what it is. I believe this is self-explanatory, and I do not want to invest time here, because when we will study about the financial market, what is money market, capital market, duration, right? And how, see, even Keynes discussed about, when we will move into the Keynes school further, we will understand, read this equation. Wealth is equal to bonds plus money. We will study the types of money, right? So that time we will discuss in detail about the financial market. Government sector, taxes, when we will talk about the budget deficit, right, balanced budget, then we will take it in detail. Consumption and consumption things, just now we are going to discuss about the consumption function. And additional income we have already discussed. So this diagram is self-explanatory, and I assume you are okay with that, right? Okay, now let's move to next part. Now what we can do, okay, let me show you some diagram, because it will take some time for me to. These notes we will upload on. See, these notes you can use for your purpose in the video recording of this lecture on YouTube. You can use it. So I want to show you the consumption function. Okay, let me just consumption function. Right. So this is your consumption function, right? Is equal to A plus B by D. Okay. Now this should be actually disposable income. See what it's trying to say. This is nothing but a straight line equation. Okay. See what is this? This is your slope. B is nothing but your slope. Okay. And this is your intercept. Okay. So consumption is dependent on. See, let's say you are consuming something, even if there is income or not. If people is not, people needs money whether there is salary or not, right? So there is some constant part. This is kind of an intercept. And when you draw an equation of a line, you can draw it like this. So this is the intercept part, right? And this is the slope part. So you can assume this is theta is your B, and this is your A. Okay, and this is the straight line equation is of C is equal to A plus B by D. So what we are assuming, you have some disposable income. YD means disposable income. What is the disposable income? Income which you will have after tax has been paid, right? So Y minus T. T is the taxes, and Y you already know. Y is equal to C plus I plus G plus NX. Okay. So I believe this equation is self-explanatory. Any problem? Bataiye. Let's say this is let's say okay, it tells if B is high, it means your propensity to consumption is high. Okay, So this is the way you can understand. And I think, okay, we have also drawn this equation here. Now, you must understand two things. Just a minute. Marginal propensity to consume, that is equal to B, is equal to, let me use the different pen. That is delta C upon delta Y D. Okay, this is your B, and this is called marginal propensity to consume. Okay, marginal propensity to save. Similarly, marginal propensity to save is called, so whatever you are consuming, 1 minus that you are saving, right? This is called 1 minus B is equal to marginal propensity to save. And how you get this equation? See, similar from here. Let me see. Okay, just a minute. Okay, from here you can understand this equation. Okay, see this. Is equal to these two equations you got from the income and expenditure method, right? Calculating GDP or aggregate demand, income from expenditure and income method. Okay, from you also know disposable income is nothing but your income minus taxes. Okay, so this is fine, and this is equal to, see, YD is equal to income minus taxes, and you know Y is equal to what? C plus S plus T. So minus T, this will become equal to become C plus S, disposable income. And now you can write the consumption function. What is the consumption function? Consumption function, as just now we saw, this is equal to YD is equal to YD plus S. Okay, so then what you will get? YD 1 minus B is equal to A plus S. Okay, so this is one thing. Now, similarly, you know, from here you got the saving. Saving is equal to minus A. Okay, so now here they have just we have just plotted the this delta S to delta D. This is disposable income. This is your saving, change in saving. So I think please try to read, you know, if you get time to read some part of the notes. Now what I will do, I want to show you, yes, this equation. Okay, this is the point. See, it will take me a lot of time to draw all these graphs. So that's why we have taken use of this, we call it PPT. See, for me, you know, see, nowadays what happens, PPT notes, to do some meaningful work, some rigorous work, you have to use pen and paper, right? When you use pen and paper, when you make notes, equation, that is the rigorous work. Just writing 2-3 lines on PPT, that takes you nowhere. Okay, so let's see this thing. From here you will understand MPS. What it says, this equation is self-explanatory, right? Y is equal to Ci plus G, and what you have done at the place of C, you have written A plus By. Okay. From where you got it? See, this is nothing but your, just now we saw na, Y is equal to C plus I plus G, and C is your A plus B YD, and YD is your Y minus T, right? Let me write it, you know, to help you explain how this equation came. A plus B, I can write it Y minus T, C I, this is G, I plus G, and Y is equal to A plus BY minus BT plus I plus G. So this is for those who cannot understand. Now you understand this line, right? A plus BY minus BT plus I plus G. Those who are wondering how this line came, from here you can see, we have done nothing but put the value of the consumption function. And what is the consumption function? You know, depending upon your disposable income. Okay, so when this is fine, you will take B things common. Now from here you can take this B common. So what you will get? Y, tell me, 1 minus B is equal to A plus I plus G, A plus I plus G plus 1 minus T. Okay, sorry, 1 minus, okay, 1 minus, this is minus BT, right? Here it should be minus BT. Okay, this is I. So I've taken this term here and everything, right? A minus BT plus I plus G. Okay, so you got this equation, right? Now what you have done, you have just simply divided that by that. So you got this equation. Y is equal to 1 upon, see, now this factor becomes important. This is what I wanted to discuss. Y is equal to this thing. Okay, and how you got it? Just by simple algebra. Now once you have understood this, now try to, let me see how to. Okay, just a minute. Okay, now see this thing. Now this graph becomes important. This is your aggregate income, right? And this is your MPC, and this thing you got by algebraic manipulation. Now focus on this. What we are plotting here, this is your aggregate expenditure, and this is your income output. So what is this? See what this equation line, 45-degree equation line mentioned, that your expenditure is equal to your output. See, if this is the ideal condition. Income is equal to expenditure. But let's say, okay. See, it is also written, the 45-degree line indicate that aggregate expenditure equal aggregate demand. Okay. Now see what is happening. This is your consumption function. This is your consumption function. And in this consumption function, you have added the component of I and G. So this will be your new equilibrium. This will be your new equilibrium. This will be your output. Okay. So this is the takeaway. And can you see also here what has happened here? The consumption function is accepted by I plus G. And how you got this? From this. Okay. This thing. I think that's explain this equation. Now what we will do, similarly on the saving part also you can say it. Let's say here we have seen it from the C plus I plus G, but there is one more equation, y is equal to C plus S plus T. What is happening here? Observe this equation. Here again income is there, and this is your from I plus G plus S plus T. So what is this condition? This is income plus investment plus government expenditure. Okay. And this graph shows your S plus T, saving plus taxes. So actually, see what should this graph is a little bit incomplete. What you have to do, you have to superimpose on this graph the previous graph, the graph of which we draw using this equation. Okay, you remember this graph? So here there was 45-degree line. Okay, then there was consumption function. Consumption function was A plus BY, right? A plus BY, disposable income. Then in that you added what? I plus G, A plus BY, D, I plus G, and this shift was I plus G. So you got, see, this was the 45-degree line, so this you got new input. So these two has to be read together. Okay, so this graph is for I plus G plus C. This again is your income. So from here you have to visualize. Okay, now, according to income expenditure method, this is my equilibrium point, and according to income method, this is my equilibrium point, right? So now let me, okay, I think what we can do, try to read these notes, and some important thing Okay, now this thing is called, see, generally in textbook you will find that 1 upon 1 minus b. 1 upon 1 minus b, and where b is nothing but the marginal propensity to consume. Okay, it is called autonomous expenditure multiplier, and this part a minus b minus bt minus ic, this is called autonomous expenditure. So please keep this thing in mind. See, after not today but in the next lecture we are going to discuss a concept. What that concept is, let's say government is spending something, right? Government expenditure is there. Government, you know the ci plus c plus I plus g plus nx. So that g part, government is spending something, right? And how the government is getting that money? Through taxes. Okay, so even if the government is getting it is spending through taxes, even then nation your income will rise. This is an important concept in Keynes school. What he said, let's say G is there, right? G is being funded by taxes. Then also your Y will rise, and why it rises, that we will study this autonomous expenditure multiplier in detail in the next class. Then you will understand. So I will leave you today here, and I would recommend to do some numericals on. Try to see how this 1 minus the expenditure multiplier behaves. Okay, so let's say your B, marginal propensity to consume, is 0.5. Then your 1 minus 1 upon B will become how much? 1 minus 0.5. This is 1 upon 0.5. This is equal to 2. Okay, and let's say your marginal propensity to consume is 1 minus 0.9. That will, 1 upon 0.1, that will be equal to 10. See, what is the implication of this thing? Let's say what you are saying, if you are consuming too much, right? Here what you are doing, if the B is high, okay, if the B is high, then your expenditure multiplier is, see, when the B is 0.5, your expenditure multiplier is 2. But when your marginal propensity to consume become 0.9, from 0.5 to 0.9, your expenditure multiplier grows 5 times. Okay, this is an important thought. Okay, so and why all this happen, and how further it is related to, let's say, I want to show you one more thing. Just a minute. Just a minute, where it is. ST, this is okay. How it is? Okay, here we have seen the role of saving and investment, but how your delta Y is related with taxes. Okay, see, not today, but tomorrow we will discuss in, we will see it again, that this thing, delta I is equal to, this is nothing but the change in your income to the change in your investment, and this is change in the saving, and this is, same, and it is given by 1 minus B. Okay. So, sorry, 1 upon 1 minus B, right? This would be, it is 1 upon 1 minus B, but for this thing, the story is different. The story, and this is the crux, see, this is just mathematical formula to remember. Change in income to the change in investment, change in income to the change in saving, both are equal, and it is equal to 1 minus B. That is all mathematical, that's fine. But the most important is to understand, let's say, for an economist, for an UPSC aspirant, what happens when the taxes are changed, right? If there is change in the taxing, how the income change, what is the effect on the multiplier, how the multiplier effect changes. And see, if you understand such concept, when you read economic surveys, right, then you are able to understand, okay, why the government is if the government has changed taxes, so what will the effect on my GDP, what will the effect on my income, how the investment will change. So all these thoughts help you understand economic surveys better. Okay, so what I will do in the next class, we will take this discussion forward. In the meanwhile, what you can do, you please try to, what you will do, you can try to study a few things about let me see. Okay, try to just read something about autonomous expenditure. Okay, and okay, if I say the higher if your MPC is high, marginal propensity to consume is high. Let's say if I write this statement, if your MPC is high, marginal propensity to consume is high, it will means higher the multiplier effect. Okay, multiplier effect, that is 1 upon 1 minus b. And see mathematically दिख रहा है साफ साफ, right? MPC हाई होगा, b ज़्यादा होगा, तो इसका जो रेशियो होगा, मान लो कि b ज़्यादा है तो ये डिनोमिनेटर कम होगा, डिनोमिनेटर को डिवाइड कर रहे हो तो ये जो नंबर आने वाला है वो itself is a big number. So but again, how it is working in economy, all those things you must understand. We will upload these notes in the YouTube link, and so thank you very much for today.